Welcome to a special edition of the 901. We're your hosts. I'm Tiffany Collins.
And I'm Tyler Stegall. Tiffany, have you ever been on a red carpet?
Yeah, I have one in my bedroom, one at the front door, one at my...
No, Tiffany. I'm talking about a special red carpet event, like at a gala.
I guess not.
I can't say that I have either, but with that being said, tonight we'd like to welcome you to a special red carpet edition of the 901. Tonight, Tiffany, the city of Memphis honors its 1968 sanitation strikers by hosting this special event.
Yes, Tyler, and although neither one of us were born at that time, we have so much to be thankful for the sacrifices they made.
That's right. These men sacrificed so much to help move the city of Memphis forward.
So let's go inside and see what we have to learn from them.
Sounds great. We're here with Mayor of Memphis, Jim Strickland. Mayor Strickland, tell us a little bit about tonight's event and what the goal of the event is.
Well, the big goal of tonight's event is to honor the men who were sanitation workers on strike in 1968, because their bravery and courage really inspired the world.
Deputy Thomas, can you tell us what it means to have had the opportunity to chair this event?
It's actually have been extraordinary to be able to provide an event for such deserving people. Of course, the sanitation workers provide such a dedication to the city of Memphis and the service that they provide.
Dr. King's concern was the plight of working poor people who worked every day and still could not make ends meet. Today, frankly, there are 54% of blacks who make less than $15 an hour, have made less than $12 an hour, working poor people.
Ambassador Young, when you were here 50 years ago, did you ever think that the city of Memphis would have gotten to a point where they would have taken the opportunity to commemorate the occasion and pay homage to the sacrifice that was made?
Well, I did, because I've never given up on the South. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, 86 years ago, and I never thought I would see some of the things that happened in New Orleans. And I never thought, when I first went through Atlanta on the way to Howard University, it was the last place in the world I thought I'd end up. So I've seen the South changed. I've been a part of that change, and I'm very proud of Memphis.
I was the chairman of the Public Works Committee under which the sanitation workers came. And I had spent months trying to end the sanitation strike and working with the administration and the council trying to pull it together. And we finally got it together.
Clearly, to me, this is a historic city in so many ways, but the sanitation workers who stood for rights, for justice, for economic justice, are so important to the larger story that King was fighting for, that the civil rights movement was about, which was about economic empowerment as well as equality and fairness. So I'm I feel very blessed to be here. I love this city, and I really just feel grateful for all the legacy that I've inherited as a young man who wasn't even alive back 50 years ago.
My neighbor.
My friend.
My sorority sister.
A family friend.
My grandmother.
My mom.
My sister.
Memphis says no more.
I watch y'all coming here for years, cause you shot somebody. Now your life is shot. You gonna pick that phone up one day, and that girl gonna be done dumped you and raise your child with another man. Or maybe your mama or your grandmama dies. Cause ain't nothing you can do about it. You got 15 to 20 years, state or fed time. Real talk. Don't lose your head, use your head, man. Gun crime, max time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host for this evening's festivities, a woman who has dedicated 37 years of her life to serving our community. She is the queen of Memphis Talk Radio and the host of WDIA Radio's The Bev Johnson Show. Please welcome Ms. Bev Johnson.
As I grow older, As I grow older, as I grow older, I pay less attention to what men and women say. I just watch what they do. Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to be the host of tonight's program, the Martin Luther King 50th Honors Ceremony, commemorating the 1968 sanitation worker strikers. You are in for a thoughtful and inspiring evening with the roster of guests and entertainers that we have in store for you tonight. So let's get it on with this show. Please welcome the Deputy Chief Operating Officer of the City of Memphis, Chairwoman of this evening's Martin Luther King 50th commemoration. Please welcome Mrs. Patrice Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, the city of Memphis pays tribute to men and women who have made and continue to make our lives and our community a better place to live each and every day. If you are a current or a former City of Memphis sanitation or solid waste employee, I ask that you stand up at this time. All right. Woo! All right. Tonight, Memphis pays tribute to you. Tonight, this is all about you. You may be seated now, okay? Memphis honors our current sanitation employees for their dedicated service that they provide to us. And since the current sanitation employees stand on the shoulders of giants, tonight we also honor the 1968 Memphis sanitation workers for their contribution not only to Memphis, but to the entire American civil rights movement. Without the courage of a few, none of us would be here today. And speaking of a few, in 1968, there were a few Memphis City Councilmen who voted on the right side of history and played a role in the struggle for humanity and fair wages for the sanitation employees. So tonight, we honor them as well. Presenting awards tonight are not only leaders of our government here in the city of Memphis, but leaders of the civil rights movement from around the country, all of whom are working hard every day to make our communities fair, safe, and just, and who are fostering the new generation of leaders, but most importantly, are here tonight and humbling themselves before you whom they serve. We look forward to hearing from them tonight. Thank you.
That time I went to start working in 1963, and we took them tubs on our head, and so really it was really rough then, back then. When I first come to the city, I was making $1 an hour. And later year, Pete said, he come in there, he said, we toting tubs on our head at that time. Mr. Pete, when he come in there, he said, well, I'm gonna take tubs off you boys' head, I'm gonna give you boys a raise. I'm gonna give y'all a penny. So they get us a penny raise. I was coming away from the country, the cotton fields, trying to go up. Look like that made me thought then, I ain't going up, I'm going 30 going down. That made me want to quit a minute a day. But I don't know how I did it, but I stuck on in there for 44 years.
Welcome to the stage, City of Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland.
Good evening. On behalf of 650,000 Memphians, on behalf of a city that has changed the world and is still changing it, I want to offer you a heartfelt welcome here tonight. When we talk about Memphis changing the world, we have plenty of examples. Rock and roll music, the treatment and cure of childhood cancer, blues music, express package delivery, and the list goes on and on. But we're gathered here tonight because the men who stood and marched for human dignity in 1968 absolutely changed the world and changed the world for the better. On behalf of all Memphis, I say thank you. Thank you for your courage, your will, and your example. We are here tonight to honor you. I'd like to acknowledge all the city staff, and there was a lot of them, who worked so hard to make this event a reality. I'd also like to acknowledge the great group of speakers we have here tonight. Senator Cory Booker. Thank you for the work you're doing every day in Washington to make ours a better nation, and in particular, for the opportunity zones that you put in a recent bill. Thank you. John Hope Bryant. Thank you for all the work you've done and are still doing, particularly here in Memphis, in terms of financial empowerment. And Ambassador Andrew Young. Thank you for a lifetime of dedication to the cause of civil rights in our country. Thank you for being a congressman, an ambassador, and I personally think the highest calling, mayor. Thank you for being a witness to Dr. King, and thank you for continuing to share his message across the world. And to the sanitation workers of 1968 and the public works employees of today, I want you to know that this evening's all about you, and we appreciate you. Your example has served as a model for 50 years of change in this country. And as we all know, it's an example that so compelled Dr. King to come here to Memphis and unfortunately to give his life. We know there's much work to do in Memphis and in our country in the pursuit of justice and equity. There's no question about it. But we also know that we look back to those dark days of 1968 and we see that so much progress has been made. In 1968, the sanitation workers made poverty wages with no health or retirement benefits. In 2018, our solid waste employees make a living wage, have full benefits, and have a strong retirement package. And as I often share, in 1968, the man who held the office that I hold now wouldn't even speak to you. Today, in February 2018, as mayor of Memphis, I'm here to tell you, you are indeed men. And so as we enjoy this evening and hear from the speakers, let us never forget the example that the I Am a Man message made to the world, that human dignity is for all human beings. It's a message born from these streets of this city, a message and a movement that has changed the world. Welcome tonight as we celebrate this message and the men who delivered it.
Memphis 911, do you need police, fire, or ambulance?
This is Memphis Police Director Michael Rawlings.
And Fire Director Gina Sweat. Every false alarm call takes minutes away from 911 dispatchers and the police and fire departments.
We can save millions of dollars and help keep police officers, firefighters, and paramedics responding to true emergencies if you help us reduce false alarms.
Learn more about Operation FAR at www.metroalarms.org.
Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Our next presenter is a councilwoman who represents District 3. Welcome Memphis City Councilwoman, Mrs. Patrice Robinson.
Good evening. Our next guest has served as the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, presiding over the city's greatest period of economic growth since the 1960s. He then won a special election in 2013 to represent New Jersey in the United States Senate. Cory Booker has taken on some of the most difficult issues facing our country, such as reforming the criminal justice system and improving our nation's infrastructure. He serves on several committees: the Senate Judiciary Committee, Small Business and Entrepreneurship, the Committee for Environment and Public Works, and finally, the Foreign Relations Committee. Throughout almost two decades in public service, Senator Booker has established himself as a creative problem solver who seeks bipartisan solutions. I am honored on this evening, and it is my pleasure to introduce to each and every one of you Senator Cory Booker.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Come on, that food hasn't taken all the blood away from our heads. Hello. I am so grateful to be back in Memphis. It's so good to be in the great state of Tennessee, the state that educated my mother at Fisk University, and the state that embraced my brother right here in Memphis for many years. I want to let you all know that I am the warm-up act for some incredible human beings that will be on this stage very soon. But what I want to do is just let everyone know the joy of this occasion and how important this is for our community, not just those here, but for this nation spiritually. My father had a sort of way of talking to me as a young man. The older that I got, the more incredible my dad's childhood stories got. You know, I was afraid to go to his town in North Carolina because it seemed that every time he told the story, the weather was getting worse. It started out the size of golf balls and then went all the way through every single ball in sports, from baseballs to softballs to footballs, hail the size of beach balls. But he told this one story that I just want to use right now because it captures some of the spirit of what my father taught me and what the legends we honor today taught the world. My father told me that one day he was a boy in a schoolhouse and a teacher came in and said, "Class, I want to teach you all about self-esteem. Anybody in this classroom thinks you're dumb or thinks you're stupid, stand up, I want to know who you are." And she stood there waiting and none of the children moved. And she repeated herself, getting impatient, standing there before them. She said, "Come on now, class. Anybody here thinks you're dumb, thinks you're stupid, stand up right now." And my father said nobody was moving, but he looked at the teacher standing there, and then finally he decided to push his chair back and stand up proudly. And the teacher looked at him and said, "Mr. Booker boy, what's wrong with you? You think you're dumb? You think you're stupid?" And my father looked at the woman and said, "Well, ma'am, I'm sorry. I don't think I'm stupid, but I didn't want you to be the only one standing." Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You got my back. My father taught me as a little boy that they're going to say things about you. They're going to talk things about you. They're going to heap scorn upon you, but you got to stand up. You got to stand up because people stood for you. They struggled for you. They went through the Middle Passage for you. They fought through slavery for you. You got to stand up. My father taught me that you got to stand with pride and honor, that know that you are the equal to any man or woman that there is. And my father also taught me that when you stand, you've got to stand with humility. Never stand so that you look down on people. In fact, the only way you should look down on anyone is when you're reaching over with a hand to help them up. My father told me, he said, "Son, someone who is nice to you but not nice to the waiter, not nice to the janitor, not nice to the sanitation worker is not a nice person." And so here we are gathered together for this great occasion to honor legends who have passed and living legends before us, humble heroes who stood up for the spirit of dignity and worth and honor. They understand two great themes in America. The first one is one that was so well articulated by Frederick Douglass, who said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. Those who profess to favor freedom but deprecate agitation are like those who want the crops without the tilling of the soil, who want the rain without the thunder and the lightning, who want the ocean without its mighty roar. If there is no struggle, there is no progress." These are great men who understood that nothing will be handed to us, that when it comes to the dignity and the worth, we have to struggle for it. They understood that their struggle is not theirs alone, but they understood before the term became popular in our era, they understood the intersectionality of all struggle. They understood that the struggle for a sanitation worker in this great city of Memphis is connected to the struggles of workers in Newark, New Jersey, the struggles of workers in South Carolina, the struggles of workers in Los Angeles. There is but one struggle for justice in this country. And injustice anywhere is indeed, as King said, a threat to justice everywhere. But they also understood that we in this nation have to begin to have a greater commitment to each other. That the greatest threat to justice is not injustice, it is apathy, it is ignorance, it is inaction. That somehow we have to begin to prick the consciousness of others to let them understand that we are all in this together. And that's why I feel so honored to be before these men, because they were warriors of love. Now let me help you understand something, because I get a little upset nowadays when people start talking about America being a country of tolerance. That is not what we should be aspiring to as a nation. Tolerance is the floor. Love is the ceiling. Tolerance just says, I'm stomaching your right to be different. And if you disappear off the face of the earth, I'm no worse off or better off. But love understands. If you do well, if your family does well, if your children succeed, I am better off because of that. Tolerance couldn't care less. Love couldn't care more. Tolerance doesn't see each other, but love looks at you and sees your worth, sees your dignity, sees your value, and understands that we need each other. Tolerance builds walls Love tears them down and builds bridges and connects one to another. We still have a need for love in our country. And that's why today is so important. You see, the best way to give gratitude is not with words, but with actions. As James Baldwin says, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. We are a nation that needs to understand that if we want to honor our heroes, it is not just by celebrating them, but it's also about being out there to continue the work that they have begun. We live in a nation that still demands committed soldiers willing to enter into the struggle for economic justice. Here we have a country where corporate profits are at an 85-year high, but when it comes to workers' pay, we're at a 60-year low. Here we have a nation that still boasts the wealthiest nation on the planet Earth, but when it comes to our peer countries, we have the highest child poverty rates. Here we have a nation where the difference between blacks and white wealth is now worse than it was in the 1970s. We have a nation where we still have people right now today that are working full-time jobs, but still find themselves below the poverty line. And so if we are going to celebrate today, if we are going to honor the occasion, it's not just looking to pay back our heroes. We need to understand that we have an obligation to pay it forward to generations not yet born. That the struggle must continue. That we are still not free at last. That we are not the nation we say we are yet, a nation of liberty and justice for all. And so this gathering today, let it be a time where we hug our heroes, we hail our heroes, but let it also be a time where we commit to our heroes still with us and those past, that we will continue the work that we have begun. Let them know that we will elevate the dignity of all of God's children, not just the ones dining at the table, but also the ones back in the kitchen cleaning up right now. Let us recommit ourselves to the struggle of this country. Let us be together today with love of each other. Let that love nurture and nourish and empower us in this struggle. I had a brother that lived in this city for a long time. And he took me to the museum there by the Lorraine Motel. And I was amazed that there is a Bible verse that is put at the very spot that Martin Luther King was shot. I was surprised to see the words of Genesis written right there. The words spoken by Joseph's brothers when they saw Joseph coming in his coat of many colors. And his brothers said, and the words there at the spot where King was slain, the words say, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him and see what becomes of his dreams." Ladies and gentlemen, the dream still lives. The dream still demands. This dream must still drive us forward. We have a great nation founded in great ideals that were bigger than the very men that founded them, who were still steeped in the sexism and the bigotry of the time. Every generation has struggled to make a more perfect union. And our founders understood when they put forth the dream of this nation, the great experiment. In that Declaration of Independence, at the end of it, they talked about the commitment that we must give to one another. They said, if we're going to make this nation work, that we must mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Today, we honor those who gave their sacred honor for the cause of our country, for the dream of this land. It's now our turn to understand, as Langston Hughes said, there is a dream in this land with its back against the wall. To save the dream for one, we must save it for all. Let us be the dream savers. Let us pay back our ancestors' struggle by paying it forward. There is still work to do. God bless everyone.
Please welcome back Mayor Jim Strickland and FedEx Vice President Chris Winton.
Before I talk about what I was brought up here to do, there's a man here who's probably one of the most remarkable Americans in the last 60 years that we've not recognized yet, and that's the great Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm very proud to be back up here tonight for a very special announcement. As important as it is to look back at our past and learn from it, it's especially important to make our future even brighter, as Senator Booker was just saying. And what better way to do that than to make sure that we're providing our current and future generations the best education opportunities. So tonight, I'm proud to announce, thanks to a partnership with FedEx, we're launching a scholarship fund geared toward current solid waste employees' families. The City of Memphis is proud to announce that we're starting the fund with $75,000. This begins an endowment that will continue to grow through the years and make an impact on more and more lives. I'm proud to introduce our partner, FedEx Vice President Chris Winton, who has more.
Thank you, Mayor Strickland. Always have to let this down after following the mayor. On behalf of FedEx and our 35,000 team members here in the city of Memphis and the 400,000 team members across the globe, we are proud to honor the Memphis sanitation workers here today. I am especially proud in this moment because in January of this year, FedEx flew 4 of our sanitation workers from Memphis to California to the 2018 NAACP Image Awards. It was at this event, as I'm seated in the awards ceremony, that I got a text from my own father, and I spoke with him right after the event, and he said, "Son, did you recognize that one of those 4 men was your cousin, James Winton, who's here today?" And I want to say thank you to James Winton and the family for your work and commitment. What was funny is as I was talking to my father and my wife, who's here today, she says, "Didn't you know that was your cousin?" And I said, "My dad is the youngest of 11. We got a lot of cousins." But when I was speaking with my father, he said, "Actually, son, I'm the youngest of 12. I had an older brother who too was a sanitation worker who died in '71 on one of the trucks." I've since learned quite a bit about that journey. And he said his brother, the last thing that he shared with him before he passed was, we are more than a pair of hands and a strong back. And it was that's why we held the sign saying, "I am a man." I was a bit disappointed and emotional when he was saying it. And he said, "Son, don't get emotional. Your family now hands you the sign, and now you hold it as a Winton saying, 'I am a man,' and an executive at FedEx showing what's possible." So FedEx is committed now to honor Dr. King's legacy and the work here with 3 key initiatives. First, we're proud to announce that we are making a $50,000 contribution to the I Am a Man scholarship endowment that the mayor just announced. We are also pleased to be the title sponsor for the Dr. MLK Reflection Park with a gift of $250,000. In addition to that, FedEx is sponsoring free public admission to the National Civil Rights Museum on April the 2nd, free admission to the on April 4th to the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum, and the National Center of Civil Rights and Human Rights in Atlanta, Georgia. FedEx is committed to connecting people and possibilities, and today I'll ask my FedEx family to stand because we want to salute you, and I say personally thank you on behalf of the Winton family for your commitment to us, this city, and to this great country. Thank you.
Our next guest is sharing a special song with us. Please welcome chart-topping, platinum-selling, and Grammy Award-winning artist, Regina Belle.
Good evening, everybody. How are we doing tonight? I am so honored to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. And I believe this is the first of many to come, I believe. And it's so humbling to stand before folk who have put their life on the line for you. But if I can't say anything else, and it seems like such an inadequate statement, I just want to say thank you tonight for everything that you've done for us. I wrote this song some time ago with a friend of mine, and I'm a history buff. I kind of really, really love history. I found my love in history, knowing about who we were, gives us the potential to know who we can be. And so I wrote this song called Freedom. Is rich, it runs deeper than the ocean. So please don't forget, it's our history and our legacy. We are more than just a slave ship coming to America. And we owe it all to those who have lived and died so that we could be more. What mama prayed and cried for, what daddy stuck his neck out for. It was the freedom to live for every man, woman, boy, and girl. Freedom. I take it to believe in their visions and their dreams. Freedom. Nobody greater than yourself if you can see. Ooh, I wonder what the mothers and the fathers of old would say about us now. Would they be proud of us? Would they scream at us? Just hang their heads down. Take a look around at all that they've achieved. They did it for you and they did it for me. The dark continent cries. Innocent people die. Was it all in vain? Gotta change the way we think. I'm talking about freedom. 'Cause we can be what we wanna be. And it starts inside. Bring the vision alive so we all can be.
When you look around at all of the examples of African Americans, you will see the impossibilities of America ever having been the beautiful without us. Yes, it was on our backs, through our labor, our creativity, our gifts and talents, but most of all, on the strengths of whom and whose we are. We never gave up on freedom, the audacious freedom to just be. Benjamin Banneker, the Isabel, Madam C.J. Walker, Ralph Bunch, Paul Robeson, Maxine Waters, Langston Hughes, Fannie Lou Hammond, the Tuskegee Airmen, Shirley Chisholm, Mary McLeod of Carolina, Richard Allen, Absalom Banks, the AME Church, Martin Luther King, President Barack Obama.
I need to see freedom. I am a man, I am a woman, I gotta have my freedom, Thank you for every sacrifice that you made for me. I wanna say freedom. The Memphis sanitation workers, all we need is
We have a job to do. To protect the peace, the pride, and the people of our city. To realize our greatness together. To do the work that matters. For ourselves, our families, our community. Do you have the strength to serve? Learn the true value of a challenging and rewarding career in law enforcement with the Memphis Police Department. Join the best in blue. Visit joinmpd.com.
Our next guest represents Super District 8. Welcome Memphis City Councilman, Mr. Martavius Jones.
Good evening. On March 5th, 1968, City Council resolution for union dues checkoff failed by a vote of 9-4, with council members Jared Blanchard, Fred Davis Jr., James Netters, and J.O. Patterson cast their votes based on their belief that the city of Memphis deserved change. Following the meeting, these 4 council members lingered to talk to the sanitation workers, ministers, community leaders, and citizens in attendance. Their courageous vote marked a change in our city, and their conversations with citizens affirmed their desire to bring equity to the striking sanitation workers. Today, we have the pleasure of having former council members Fred Davis and Dr. James Netters present, as well as the families of council members Jared Blanchard and J.O. Patterson to accept the I Am a Man Award.
singing her chart-topping song, I Believe. Put your hands together for Grammy Award-winning artist, Mrs. Ann Nesby.
Good evening, everybody. Woo, I know you can do better than that. Good evening, everybody. You all sure look beautiful. Give yourself a hand. Woo! Y'all still believe? You know it took a lot of belief that God would bring us through and allow us to see this day. And all miracles and dreams are realized for us through faith. And nothing seems impossible when you believe. Oh, I know we're not at church, but I'm wondering if we have any believers in this audience that God has brought you from a mighty long way, and you're not ashamed to tell it. Oh, I believe. Anybody believe? Let me hear you say yeah. Woo! Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, I believe. I still believe. God's been good to me, and I'm grateful to be here to celebrate the people that were able to do for me what I couldn't do. God bless you, and keep on believing. Y'all gonna keep on believing? Y'all gonna help me out tonight? I know we dressed up and got on our best, but we got to let the Lord know we still believe. You still believe? Yeah. I'ma move right along. I believe. Oh, yes, I do. Woo! I believe. Do you? And I'll never, ever doubt every minute out. Yeah. I believe. Well, I believe. Do you? I know I'll get my help from the power in the sky. Woo! Yes. No need asking where I've been. Just ask me where I'm going. I won't be ashamed to tell you I live my life knowing all the roads ahead of me are filled with peace and love. Every step so heavenly, all in my fire. All miracles and dreams realized for me through faith. Nothing seems impossible if you believe, and I believe. Do you? Never ever doubt it. It's all right to clap your hands. I believe. Well. Do you? I know I'll get my help. Oh, yes, I will. Looking in the mirror, I can see my going. Living testimony that the Spirit sends me flowing. Oh, I'm feeling so good. Got to raise my hands and rejoice. Say a few words to praise and praise every time I lift my voice. Oh, miracles and dreams realized for me through faith. Nothing seems impossible if you believe. Do you? How do you? Never ever doubt. Oh, no. Well. Do we've not come to have a good time and celebrate for all the believers. When I ask you, do you believe? Let me hear you say yeah, yeah. I can't believe that. Let me hear you say yeah, yeah. That's a little better. Let me hear you say yeah, yeah. I do believe. Do ya? Yes, I do. Do ya? Ask me. Do ya? Yes, I do. Do ya? Yes, I do. Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do 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 you? Do 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 you? Do 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 you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Yeah, 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 I do believe, I believe in the woman I'll never, every minute, every hour, cause I know I'm gonna help. Oh yes, I do. I believe. God bless you. I love you. And I'll never, and I thank you so much for all that you are. We still believe. Oh, praise the Lord. God bless you.
When we striked for the union, we went on strike, we didn't have a union. We were striking for representation of a union. We didn't have a union. And because of that, many times that our Sherman had to do without, because we was out marching. And it's something when you see, you have 4 or 5 Sherman, see them in a state of hunger and need something to eat, you know, it really does something to you. And, but one thing about it, we couldn't go back. We had to stay going, keep going forward. And so I really give my hat off to the people of Memphis for helping us at that period in time. Yes, really done a real beautiful job helping us. And one other thing, the ladies that were with us, they all came together. So we love you all ladies, because without you all we wouldn't have made it. That's what we have. So many ladies, many was on the front line. You know, to them really, it was just because what was right.
Live in Memphis? Need assistance? Finding help is easy when you make the right call. For life-threatening emergencies only, of course, John would call 911. But not for noise complaints or things like loose dogs, vacant lots with weeds. Call 311 when you don't know where to turn for city services. Call 211 when you need non-emergency health and human services help. Finding help is easy when you make the right call.
Fire department, what's the address of the emergency?
This is Memphis Fire Director Regina Sweat. Every false alarm call takes minutes away from 911 dispatchers and the Memphis Fire Department. We can save millions of dollars and keep firefighters and paramedics responding to true emergencies if you will help us reduce false alarms. Learn more about Operation FAR at www.metroalarms.org.
And now, the City of Memphis Chief Operating Officer, Doug Mcgowan.
Well, good evening. What a treat we have tonight. John Hope Bryant has been called a whirlwind of ideas and action. Lean, intense, focused, and completely positive in his belief in the potential of poor people to prosper, with a hand up instead of a handout. Bryant is the founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Operation Hope, the largest not-for-profit and best-in-class provider of financial literacy, financial inclusion, and economic empowerment tools in the United States for youth and adults. He's the chairman and chief executive officer of Bryant Group Ventures and the Promise Homes Company, the largest for-profit, minority-controlled owners of institutional, quality, single-family residential rental homes in the United States. He's also the co-founder of Global Dignity. The last 5 United States presidents have recognized his work, and he has served as advisor to the last 3 sitting U.S. presidents from both political parties. He's solely responsible for financial literacy becoming the policy of the United States federal government. In January 2016, Bryant became the only private citizen to inspire the renaming of a building on the White House campus, when the U.S. Treasury Annex building was renamed the Freedmen's Bank. The Freedmen Banks, founded by President Abraham Lincoln, has become the narrative of the work of Operation Hope, to help all people in the invisible class to become fully integrated in our nation's economy. In April 2017, a historical marker also inspired by John Hope Bryant to honor the final flight of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to Memphis on April 3rd, 1968, was installed at the Memphis International Airport 49 years to the day that Eastern Flight 381 arrived from Atlanta. Bryant has received numerous awards and citations for his work. In 1994, he was named one of Time magazine's 50 Leaders of the Future. He received Oprah's Use Your Life Award and the John Sherman Award for Excellence in Financial Education from the U.S. Treasury. In 2016, he was named American Banker magazine's Innovator of the Year. He recently received an honorable mention in Inc. magazine's The World's Top 10 CEOs, spotlighting global servant leaders as visionaries behind some of the most successful organizations in the world. Bryant is an American entrepreneur, an author, philanthropist, prominent thought leader on financial inclusion, economic empowerment, and financial dignity. It is my distinct pleasure, and I would ask all of you to please welcome me in joining John Hope Bryant.
Isn't God good? You know, history doesn't feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. Dr. King went to the grocery store, he went to parent-teacher night, went to boring staff meetings. He did it for 13 years. Every day was not an I have a dream speech. Although he gave that speech 100 times before the March on Washington, wondering if what he was doing sometimes made any difference at all. And I'm sure he wanted to give up the 88th time, or the 85th time, or the 92nd time, or the 95th time. But if he had given up the 99th time, the world would be different. And sometimes it's just about doing the boring work of sticking in and staying with it, because rainbows only follow storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. And no good deed shall go unpunished. You try to help somebody, they'll tell you they don't like the color of the help or the way you helped them. They may run you out of office for trying to help them. But it's your responsibility to do everything you can to help them. And so I want to start, before I do anything else, and say thank you to you, Mayor. Some would argue you have very little reason to do what you did. I'm sure some of your constituency said this is not your fight. But yet you made sure that the compensation was leveled out, that there was a financial compensation. Couldn't possibly do the justice of the injustice that was done. But you did something when you didn't have to do anything. City Council members, I want to thank you for cooperating in this grand endeavor of dignity. You deserve credit too. My friend, Senator Cory Booker, who's here somewhere, who did an incredible job for coming here today to give honor to these men. But there's something I think we got to do before we go any further. I heard you give acknowledgement earlier, and you're very respectful, but the Bible suggests be hot or be cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spat you out. The translation, even God doesn't like mediocrity. We have two living icons in not the United States of America. We've got two living icons in Memphis, Tennessee. Will you join me in saying thank you and acknowledging Reverend Jesse Jackson and Ambassador Andrew Young? Don't make me cry. That was personal. This is personal to these people. It's not a game. Leadership is not a part-time sport. This is not a game. These folks got it all in, both feet into this campaign for justice. I am a man. I don't think you heard me. I am a man.
Damn show off.
When I go to Sweden, I've been to 100 countries. When I go to Sweden, when I go to Norway, when I go to Britain, when I go to France, when I go to Mexico, when I go to China, wherever I go in the world, when I talk about Memphis, they don't talk about your history broadly defined in civil rights, or even your legacy in music and jazz and the blues. All that's important. They don't talk about your great food, all of which is noteworthy. When I go around the world, people say, I've seen that image. I've seen that photo. I am a man. And if that's the enduring image, the emotional attachment that people have to your city, hold on with me for a minute now. People don't remember what you told them. They don't remember what they read about you. They remember how you made them feel. And these sanitation workers have done something remarkable. They made people feel. I don't think you understand what I'm saying quite yet. There are 4 reasons why I know I am a man. Number 1, my mother told me so. My mother told me when I was 5 years old, I love you. She told me I love you every day of my life. There's nothing more powerful than a child being told that he or she is loved. So I want to thank Juanita Smith for that gift. And for that, I have no self-esteem problem. It's okay if you don't like me. I like me. And I'd rather you respect me and learn to like me than like me and never respect me. And my mother taught me, if I don't like me, I can't like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not gonna feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living hell. Because whatever goes around, comes around. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So when Reverend Murray of the AME Church told me, it's not what people call you, it's what you answer to that's important. And never, ever, ever answer it all to your name, John Bryant. And then I added, to argue with a fool proves there are two. Then I realized there was a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind, a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never, ever, ever to be poor again. That if you have inner wealth, you will never be poor. This is from my book, The Memo. But if you don't have inner wealth, all the money in the world will not save you. So we are all capital, because capital comes from the Latin root word capitas, which means knowledge in the head. It's about how you feel about yourself. That was my mother's legacy in my life. My dad gave me a sense of yes, I can, because he owned a business for 54 years. I'm not a brain surgeon, I'm not a genius, I'm not a miracle worker, I'm role modeling. I know I could be a businessman because I saw my daddy as a businessman. I learned to wear a suit because I saw my father wear a suit. And let me just take a departation here and say my mother traumatized me. My mama sent me to school in Compton, California, because she didn't think we had the money to buy the suits, so she made the suits. She put me in these crushed velvet. Purple. 3-piece suits with a ruffled shirt and a big, 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 big bow tie. And sent me to school, hold on, in Compton. I got my rear end whipped every single day. Kids like, he must have some money because nobody else would dress like this. I was so broke I couldn't pay attention. I couldn't catch a girl or a cold, but I figured out I was going to look the part, I was going to walk the part, so I got a briefcase, nothing in it. I started walking like a businessman. And then I didn't have any money, so I started selling stuff that, you could sell with air, like mail order. I don't know if you remember Stacey Adams shoes and Omni jewelry. Somebody else know what I'm talking about here. So my dad, I got this powerful sense of yes, I can. Yes, I am my mother. Yes, I can for my father, African-American, great role models. Then a white banker came in my classroom, and I'm saying this for a reason, because this is my first lesson in race. A white banker came in my classroom because of the Community Reinvestment Act, Jesse, that you helped to enact, 1977, came in my classroom in Compton, California, teaching home economics. And he taught financial literacy, and he didn't really want to be there when he first got there because he was forced to come. But after a couple sessions, he was like, you kids are very much like my own children. And after a while, I felt the confidence. I raised my hand. I said, excuse me, sir, what do you do for a living? And how did you get rich legally? But you see, I was serious. Because nobody in my neighborhood wore suits. My dad wore a suit on payroll day and on church day and on Bible study day. But nobody in my neighborhood wore suits. Nobody in my neighborhood had a salary. Nobody in my neighborhood had a business card. There were no skyscrapers in my neighborhood. Am I talking to myself? Do you know what I'm talking about? There was nobody in my neighborhood who had a white shirt. It was all blue collar. That was beautiful, but I had nobody to role model. I didn't know what he did. What do you do, sir, for a living? And how did you get rich legally? He said, young man, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. I said, sir, I don't know what an entrepreneur is, but if you're financing them, I'm going to be one. And I'm 9 years old. I literally go home, I crack open the dictionary to the French word entrepreneur. And then I said, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. And then for what purpose? To become a philanthropist that gives back to my community. I'm 9 years old now. The endorphins start kicking on the right side of my brain in a different way. I started dreaming about what I could do. I started seeing my neighborhood differently. I went to the liquor store, Mac's liquor store, Mr. Mac. I said, sir, you're selling the wrong kind of candy. He said, go away, little boy, I've got a college degree. I said, that's nice, I've got cavities. I'm telling you, you're selling the wrong kind of candy. So I bugged him long enough. He said, look, I'll hire you. Work at the front counter, you're a good salesman. I said, I don't want to do that, I want to be a box boy. He said, that's the worst job I've got. I said, that's the job I want. I worked for 3 weeks and quit. Because all I wanted to understand, sanitation workers, those who are on the backbone of the infrastructure of this city, who understand this city almost better than anybody else does, because you are the bones of this city. I wanted to understand where he bought his product from. What was the wholesale rate? What was the retail rate? What was the markup? What was selling? What wasn't? And I quit. Went home, borrowed $40 from my mother because she wouldn't give it to me. She said, life is tough, you got to pay it back. My mother has an 840 credit score. I said to my mother, you know, you ever get married again? She says, yeah, I'll get married again. But when I get married, he's going to be a BMW. A black man working. And so, I got $40, went to Ira's food store, got the inventory, came home, set up the neighborhood candy house, and on the way to school, made $300 a week. At 10 years old, put the liquor store out of the candy business when I was 10 years old. What did that do to my self-esteem? Come on now. My confidence level, my belief in myself, my sense that I could do anything that I wanted to do. I put the liquor store out of the candy business when I was 10 years old. So when I left that home economics course, I went to a history course. And the fourth reason I know that I am somebody is I opened up the history books and I saw a photo. I saw a photo of Dr. King in Memphis, Tennessee. But the story wasn't about him. The story was about you. And that story didn't have much text. It had a photo. The photo said, I am a man. And Dr. King said, if you don't know what you're willing to live for, you don't know what you're willing to die for, you aren't fit to live. He said, no one can ride your back unless you're bent over. Stand up. Stand up. Right your back. Stand up. If you're going to be a trash collector, be the best trash collector the world has ever seen. That's why I know I am a man. And that's why I had to be here today. Because the world changes not because of princes and kings and queens, but common people with uncommon determination. We praise our presidents, we praise kings, but we don't talk about the fact that Malcolm X had gone to prison at one time in his life. We don't talk about the fact that most of our heroes and sheroes are preachers and pastors and community leaders. That Nelson Mandela went to prison for 27 years at age 47. and came out and made his jailer his vice president. Come on now. Over mess, not in it. The long arc of history is long, but it bends towards freedom. Am I talking to myself? Are you with me? Because I'm not I'm gonna bring this home. This history lesson doesn't begin in 1968. This story does not begin in 1968. History doesn't work that way. This is eternal. In 1865, January 1865, Secretary of War Stanton and General Sherman met with 20 former slaves who were ministers who did not get the respect that they deserved from their government, from their community, from their fellow man. But those men kept demanding quietly respect for themselves. They didn't scream it, they didn't holler it, because when you have the power, you don't need to use it. They went to Savannah, Georgia, because Atlanta had been burned to the ground in the March to the Sea in the Union campaign to break the confidence of the Confederate Army, not to break the military lines, not to show we had more cannons than they did. No, to break the confidence, the spirit of the Confederates. They burned Atlanta to the sea. So Savannah was where they could meet, and they met with these 20 former slaves and said, what do you want? After slavery, what do you want? Did they say, after the Civil War, did they say they wanted a welfare program? No. Did they say they wanted a handout? No. Did they say they wanted an apology? Deserved one? No. They said, we want land. We want to do for ourselves. See how natural that was? They allocated 400,000 acres from North Carolina all the way down the coast to what we now call Miami, Florida, 30 miles from the beach. That was Field Action 15. And this was not today where beachfront property is a great thing. This was when it was an agricultural age and you made your money, you made your income from the land. And best I can tell, in the agricultural age, you start planting your seeds in the beach. You wake up tomorrow and your crop's in Jamaica. But black folks, there's a couple things I know about us. We've been doing so much with so little for so long, we can almost do anything with nothing. We've been doing so much with so little for so long, we can almost do anything with nothing. We specialize in hustle. Or as Reverend Jackson would say, when the playing field is level and the rules are published, we excel. Think about sports. Think about the arts. When the playing field is level and the rules are published, we excel. And so we did not complain about it. We didn't argue about it. We took this land. Now, mind you, no Snapchat, no Instagram, no Facebook, no Twitter, no cell phone, no Morse code. Somehow 1,000 former slaves, not the next year, the next month, February 1865, learned about the land, took occupancy of the land, worked that land so hard, somebody said, my God, they're so industrious, give them a mule. I don't think you're with me. Somebody help the audience. 40 acres and a mule. That wasn't a parable, that wasn't a story, that was our history. And it happened in 1 month. In 1865, January to February, but that's not the miracle. In March of 1865, Abraham Lincoln sits down at his desk, March 3rd, 1865, and signs the Freedmen's Bureau Act. The Freedmen's Bureau Act creates the Freedmen's Bank. The Freedmen's Bank's mission, quote, teach freed slaves about money. Now wait a minute, slow down a minute. You're going to tell me that arguably the most transformational president of that era, at the most transformational time on American soil, thought the most important thing he could do after the Emancipation Proclamation was to teach us about money and economics and free enterprise? It doesn't make any sense until you connect it to the mule and the land. And when you tie those things together, you see a very clear vision. He was trying, with all of his faults, with all of his limitations, he was trying to make America right again. He was trying to get us back to a point where all these former slaves who built this country had a shot at the American dream themselves. Not so different from what the mayor and the city council are trying to do right now in Memphis, Tennessee. And you can't make this up now. The next month, Lincoln gets shot. He gets killed. That's why you never heard about it. Now, by the way, where was the bank at? Was it across the street? Was it down? Was it on the other side of Washington, D.C.? D.C. is proximity to power. You've got the White House here. The first federal building ever made was the federal building. I'm sorry, the Treasury building. Money. The only building to share a lawn with the White House. The only building to have an underground tunnel to the White House. On the left was the Department of War. So he wanted to make policy, go over to the War Powers Act, come back to Treasury to pay for it. Across the street was Treasury Annex building. I'm sorry, that was the Freedmen's Bank building. Across the street. Lincoln wanted to come home, go upstairs, and see the candles burning on his most important social revitalization experiment, and he was assassinated before it ever started. And so a guy you know is Frederick Douglass. You know him as an abolitionist, but he was a businessman. He owned land in Baltimore, Maryland. He rented that land, those apartments, at an affordable rate to working class blacks. That gave him a net worth of $6.5 million back then. He put up $10,000 of his own money to try to save the Freedmen's Bank, which is $20 million today. The bank fails on his watch. It was said the failure of this bank did more to set freed slaves in America back than 10 more years of slavery. That's 1874. So here's my point to you. 100 years later, Dr. King comes to Memphis for the sanitation workers. But I would say what Ambassador Young told me, coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. Dr. King was diverted to Memphis. He didn't come to Memphis. He was heading to Washington, D.C. His aides told him to stay and get some rest. But he got a call from a pastor here about a movement and a mission that had to be addressed by people who were not being made visible. And he diverted himself to Memphis for what would become his last flight. And he was killed the same month as Abraham Lincoln, April, 100 years apart. Here's my message to you. You aren't dumb and you aren't stupid. It's what you don't know that you don't know that's killing you, but you think you know. That we are brilliant, we are amazing, but we never got the memo. Did you hear that? There's a memo on money. There's a memo on free enterprise. There's a memo on home ownership. There's a memo on job creation. There's a memo on entrepreneurship. There's a memo on wealth. And no, it's not in the curriculum. It's not in a textbook. But here's what I know, and I know you're getting tired of me, so I'm going to wrap this up. Here's what I know. Here's what I know about poverty. It's not what you think. Half of all poverty is low self-esteem and lack of confidence in yourself. If you don't know who you are by 9 in the morning, by dinner time, somebody's going to tell you who you are. And after 350 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow that ended in 1970, not 1870, I don't think it's irrational to suggest that a majority of African Americans don't feel all that great about themselves. But still we rise. And then you have the second part of poverty. I'm doing this fast so I can get to something that I think is really special tonight. But there's a second part of poverty, which is role models and environment. I'm gonna do this real quick because I know this audience is really smart. Role models. We'll do this really quick. Everybody's aspirational. There's not a welfare mother in this country that doesn't want her child to grow up to be successful, hardworking, and tax-paying, if for no other reason than to feel proud of them. But you can't give what you don't have. In a blind town, a one-eyed man's king. If you don't know better, you cannot do better. So if all we see in our neighborhoods as symbols of success are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers, why is anybody surprised that a kid grows up wanting to be a rap star, an athlete, or a drug dealer? That kid's not dumb. That kid's brilliant. They're modeling what they see. All a drug dealer is an illegal, unethical entrepreneur. All a gang leader is a frustrated union organizer. Am I talking to myself? And then you got environment. I know you're getting tired of me, so I'm gonna cut to the environment basically means, if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. And then you've got, oh, I got a laugh out of you that time. And then you've got aspiration. Aspiration is a code word for hope. The most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope. So here's poverty, ladies and gentlemen. It has nothing to do with what you've been told. It has nothing to do with money. Here's poverty. Crappy self-esteem and crappy confidence. Crappy role models and a crappy environment. No hope, which means you see the glass of life is half empty, not half full. So you never leave your porch. You think the world's all against you. And now it becomes self-manifest destiny. And here's wealth, high self-esteem and high confidence, great role models and a great environment. High self-esteem, high hope, you see opportunity everywhere. So here's my self-esteem, here's my role model, here's my business plan for Memphis. Here's what we're gonna do to really honor the sanitation workers. We're gonna get to work. Because a PhD is good, but a PhD is better. So I'm not coming here to give you a speech or to come give you some motivation. I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm coming to give you a solution. So here's the solution. I'm gonna drop the mic and I'm gonna drop off the stage. We think our problem's race. It's a distraction. Yes, race is a problem, but racism is like rain. It's either falling someplace or it's gathering. So you might as well get out an umbrella in a color you like and start strolling through it because it's not going to change, so you must. Ambassador Young has done his job. Dr. King has done his job. Coretta Scott King has done her job. Reverend Jesse Jackson has done his job. We gotta stop leaning on them and upgrade our software. So here's what I gotta tell you today. All your problems is tied to a number. It's called 500. Every problem you have is in a 500 credit score neighborhood. Whether you're white, rural, and poor, and there's nobody dying faster today than white, rural men with a high school education. Whether you're white, rural, and poor, rioting at the ballot box, you'll get that later. Or whether you're black and brown and poor in urban America and unfortunately rioting in the streets, the problem's the same, and here's where it is. It's a check casher next to a rent-to-own store, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a renting rim store. They're renting 20-inch rims with spinners on them for your car. Next to a payday loan lender, next to a liquor store, and then you got a church down the street trying to make it all a little bit better. All your homicides, all your drug dealing, all your dropout rates, all your lack of entrepreneurship, all of your dead financial literacy, all of your dead job creation, it is existing in a 500 credit score neighborhood. Operation Hope, in honor of all of you, we are now moving credit scores 120 points in 24 months, and nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. And here's the last thing I have to say to you. For the cynic out there saying, I don't believe this. There's never been a riot in a 700 credit score neighborhood in America's history. Of any race, black, white, brown, whether you're black, white, red, brown, and yellow, all y'all want to see some more green. Can I get an amen? So let's stop all this stupid stuff. Let's stop arguing with each other. Everybody in the world wants to be an American except Americans. We keep finding problems with each other. So if we want to honor Dr. King's legacy and his death, he gave his life up to take down a whites only sign. We got to move from surviving to thriving. So I'm going to commit today, not only to put $10,000 up in this scholarship fund myself, but we're going to open 20 Hope Insides in your city, sir. And we're going to move credit scores up. And we're going to create entrepreneurs and small business owners and taxpayers and voters. And I'm making a promise today that any sanitation worker or your family that wants to be a homeowner, you come see me. I'm out. I want to ask Senator, thank you very much. I love you all. I love you all. We have to start telling each other we love each other more often. Can we agree on that? Just say we love each other. It ain't hard. It ain't hard. I'd ask Senator Cory Booker to join me on the stage. Senator Booker, I'm going to give you the honor of going first, and then I'm going to come after you.
All right, hold on, man. First of all, please give it up for my brother one more time. Give it up, give it up. I was going to talk about you if you didn't introduce your fiance, man. Finally, this man's marrying up. As my grandfather would say, you're reaching from the top shelf, man. But that's how you've been living your life, reaching higher and higher and lifting people with you. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about him all night. He is one of my greatest heroes of my life. He is someone that has shown who he is by what he does. He is someone that has been operating at every level of American government, from being a mayor to a congressperson, even on the international level at the United Nations as our ambassador. He is someone who has brought peace to this world and peace to our communities. He's someone that understands that you judge the greatness of an individual by not how high they go, but how many people they lift along the way. He is a person that has demonstrated that the title doesn't make the man must make the title. He is someone that understands that the greatest force that you can unleash on this world is love. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call my brother up to do the final introduction of someone that we all should be standing to our feet and giving our love for his love.
Just hold it for a minute. We wanted to do this so bad, both of us fought over the honor of coming up here. And when you're a U.S. Senator, you don't have to say much but get off the stage, so he was very gracious. Let me say this. I love you, and we have learned to say that about each other and be supportive of each other because of the role models that came before us. We're all standing on tall shoulders.
Yes.
My play father is here tonight. You know him as Ambassador Andrew Young. The right arm to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the senior strategist in the movement that Dr. King did not want arrested because he had to go negotiate. Behind closed doors, after the city had been shut down, he had to go negotiate with the business leadership to get the whites only signs taken down. So he didn't get a lot of glamour, and he didn't want it. But what you don't know about this man since then, 120 honorary doctorate degrees. The first congressman elected from the South since Reconstruction. Mayor of Atlanta for 2 terms, Ms. Strickland. Co-chairman of the Atlanta Olympic Games. Brought the Atlanta Olympic Games to Atlanta because he knew everybody as the first ever black UN ambassador of the United States of America, made Atlanta into the first international city and the only international city in the South, really put the city on the map with the airport, which is the busiest airport in the world today, and really is the closest thing we have today to Nelson Mandela. But he gets no regard for this because he asked you to call him Andy. What do we call Nelson Mandela? Hey, Nell. I don't care what he says. When I see him, I say, Ambassador Andrew Young. I want to give him his credit right now. Can you join me and Senator Cory Booker of showing our love and appreciation for a man that gave his best friend?
You know, Cory Booker has a saying that his daddy told him. My daddy didn't tell me, but it was true. He said, don't stand on third base thinking you hit a triple. You were born there. I had no choice. I was born on third base. My mama and my daddy had education. They looked out for me. They introduced me to racism when I was 4 years old because the Nazi Party was 50 yards from where I was born, and I learned about the sickness of race when he took me to see Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics. And he said, now, Jesse didn't get mad when Hitler walked out. He just went on and broke 3 more gold medals. He said, the only thing you got, because he was 5'4", and he said, you're not going to ever be big. You can't beat everybody, and you won't feel good outrunning everybody. He said, but if you stay cool, you can outthink anybody. Because most people will get in a fight and get mad. He said, don't ever get mad, get smart. Now, that's what happened with the sanitation workers here. They finally began to get smart. And I want to thank you for all that you did for Atlanta. And I'm going to be quick, but when Dr. King left us, his body left us, but his spirit stayed with us. It went with Jesse to Chicago, and Chicago began to change. It went with me and others to Atlanta. But when I came back from the Poor People's Campaign, there was a sanitation worker strike. Well, because I had been with you all, they expected me to come in and lead it. And I found myself sitting down in front of the garbage trucks, trying to stop the garbage workers, trying to stop the strike breakers. And I looked at the police coming to beat us up, and I said, hold on, brothers. I said, wait a minute. These are city workers. They're just trying to get a better life for their family. You need a better life for your families too, because policemen don't make much money either. Now, you can feel good beating us up and go home poor, or you can realize we're on the same side. Now, they reached out, shook hands, and then they picked me up and put me in jail. But that was all right, because the present mayor got us out of jail. And he didn't want what you had happening here in Memphis. And so he made a deal, he made an offer, but everybody was so mad that they voted it down. And I said, wait a minute. And I got on the blackboard and I looked, and here's what 3 steps was, and here's what 2 steps was. But he was going to drop all the charges, and he was going to pay us for the whole time we've been on strike. I said, hold up, this is a deal you got to buy. And we thought through it together and changed it. Everybody went back to work with a new check and didn't owe anybody and didn't have any cases, no criminal record. Now, that kind of was the reason I ended up mayor, because that mayor found out that I had helped settle the strike, and he sat me down for almost 2 hours explaining to me how the city of Atlanta ran. And a couple of years later, when I ended up running for Congress, same mayor who put me in jail, endorsed me for Congress. And then later on, helped me to become the 55th mayor of the city of Atlanta. And so I'm not here to receive any award. I'm here to say thank you. And I'm here to say that Martin Luther King did not die here. His body was put to rest here, but his spirit was released, and it has gone all over the world. And everywhere I've ever been, and almost anything I've ever done, I got to realize that it's still the spirit, the moral authority, and the vision that we all got by working together as brothers. And that's the reason we have not perished together as fools. And the Poor People's Campaign on which he was engaged was going to Washington with 23 different nationalities. And I wanted him to go on to Washington. But he said, no, I got to go to Memphis. It was 12 o'clock at night, and he hadn't been to sleep in a week. And I said, you need to sleep late, because we got to be in Washington at 6 o'clock. He said, no, I'm going to get the 6 o'clock flight in the morning to Memphis. And I'll meet you all in Washington tonight before 8. Well, you know, and I know, he didn't make it to Washington, but all the rest of us have. Cory Booker has. Cory Booker brings a kind of vision that Jimmy Carter had. Not just Barack Obama, but Lyndon Johnson had it. The Kennedys had it, but didn't keep it long enough. But I felt good about coming here because I knew I was coming to a place where the Spirit had proven its worth, and you got a young mayor and new people coming for governor, and Tennessee is about to come together, and Memphis is going to lead the way. And I saw today the next generation of leaders. And there were over 1 million of them, many more than we had at the March on Washington. And they were mostly white and brown, and a few little black children, one of whom was a 7-year-old granddaughter of Martin Luther King. And I'll be doggone if she did not stand up there and make a speech to 1 million people and had them shouting and saying amen. And I sat there and cried, because the Spirit is moving all over the world. And you follow the Spirit as we have followed you, and things are going to be all right. God bless you. You know, I've been getting awards now for about 70 years. And what I've been doing is I usually pick out some young person in the audience, and I say, look, when I was your age, nobody gave me any awards for anything. And my mama used to always say, why don't you get recognized for something? And I said, I don't know, Mama. And so when I give it to some person, and this one doesn't qualify, but I usually try to find somebody as sorry and trifling as I was, who had taken on, you know, all kinds of foolishness And politics is crazy. Nobody in their right mind would run for anything, anywhere. And there's a fellow back here who not only is running, but he keeps running. And he's going to be running for many, many years to come because he's a young man. And I want to ask your permission, can I entrust this to Senator Cory Booker to keep on working? You were born on third base, and this will take you home.
Live in Memphis? Need assistance. Finding help is easy when you make the right call.
It's 911. Do you need police, fire, or ambulance?
This is Memphis Police Director Michael Rawlings.
And Fire Director Regina Sweat. Every false alarm call takes minutes away from 911 dispatchers and the police and fire departments.
We can save millions of dollars and help keep police officers, firefighters, and paramedics responding to true emergencies if you help us reduce false alarms.
Learn more about Operation FAR at www.metroalarms.org.
Live in Memphis? Need assistance. Finding help is easy when you make the right call. For life-threatening emergencies only, of course, John would call 911. But not for noise complaints or things like loose dogs, vacant lots with weeds. Call 311 when you don't know where to turn for city services. Call 211 when you need non-emergency health and human services help. Finding help is easy when you make the right call.
I had a tub, he's toting the garbage in. He had to go back in the backyard and pull the garbage in the tub and bring it out and put it on the truck. So I wore an apron and tried to keep clean. But now you could keep clean, you don't throw it all over, but after rain you have to be careful. Or they leave tops off them cans and there'd be a lot of water in the barrel.
So you had to buy your own clothes then, rain suit, boots and everything. We didn't have nothing, we had to buy all that. Because we had nowhere to go eat, wash our hands, do nothing, couldn't have nowhere to take no shower, nothing like that. And the best thing to do, because we had to go behind these people's houses, bring all them barrels out on the street, tubs and stuff, load these like we loading cotton in Mississippi.
You could come to work and then they call, roll, you go to work. And then you had to stay out there, and then sometimes it get kind of bad. You know, they want to rush you. After that, there were them fellas that they fired. Well, then they started again, they're talking about the union. When they started talking about the union, well, and they explained it, well, I was ready.
I got off that day, that payday, they told me, I don't see you in the office. I come in and give him a check and said, you participate in the union. I said, what union? I said, I don't know about no union. I don't know no union meet. So I didn't. I don't know about no union. And they put me back to work. The next payday, they fired me. And that's the best thing they ever did. They fired me. And then I went to 2 Old Jones. He had cards. I got me a handful of cards. I said, I'm gonna sign these guys up. Let me get fired for something.
T.O. Jones was president of the ASME Local 1733 Union. A turning point in the sanitation workers' struggle was when Ethel Cole and Robert Walker were killed in an accident in a garbage truck. The strike began on Monday, February 12, 1968. The fight for dignity, better pay, and working conditions continued. At this time, sanitation workers were making 90 cents an hour.
You are reminding not only Memphis, but you are reminding the nation that it is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages.
The Lord wouldn't tend for him. He tend for him to come see about us. Cause I tell him all, he's like a father to come see about his kids, see about his children. That's what he done. And the only thing I hate about it, he got killed. Yeah.
After Dr. King's voice was silenced, on April 8th, his wife, Coretta Scott King, picked up the torch and came back to Memphis to march with the sanitation workers and pay tribute to her husband. Memphis Mayor Henry Loeb, the City Council, ASME, and the civil rights leaders finalized an agreement, and the strike ended on April 16th, 1968, 64 days after the strike started.
When the strike started, I was happy. Because, see, we had to win our battle.
The 1,300 African-American Memphis sanitation workers saw slight wage increases, better working conditions, and could join the union. They stood up and let the world know that they were men.
No, this did what needed to be done. That's the way I feel. But I'm proud that I was a part of it to get it done.
Now, please welcome one of the 1968 sanitation workers who will share his first-hand account of the workers' experiences during that time. He's a man who continues to serve the City of Memphis Solid Waste Department, Reverend Cleophas Smith.
Good evening. We are so proud and happy to have this great opportunity to give you just a few moments of reflection, as I like to call backflash. But just before I do, I want to give recognition to my best friend, became my girlfriend, and from a girlfriend to a wife. May you stand, baby. I oftentimes say I tell people I'm going to give you the 3 S leather. Stand, said, and sit. So we're going to be quick. To look back over my life and to see where I am today, it's a great honor. 1967, April the 15th, I was employed with the city sanitation department. And I think I went in making something like maybe $1.10 an hour. I worked the whole 6 weeks, and they held back. I forgot how many weeks it were, but my first check that I received with a family, a wife, and 6 children was $115. I was so poor As I heard somebody say it a few minutes ago, and I oftentimes quote it, I was so poor until I couldn't pay attention. But thanks be to God that gave us millions. And when I say millions, I'm talking about 1,300 sanitation workers. The energy, the courage, and the bravery to stand up and to be men. Because we decided no more. We went in as young men, 25, 26, probably up to 30, and we seen how those elder men was being treated. That was my age. I'm 75. They were 75. They were 75, 60, and 50. And was going into those backyards to collect that garbage out of a 50-gallon drum. And if they dropped anything on the ground, a little 4 or 5-year-old Caucasian child could come out and say, "Boy, pick this up." And they would say, "Yassa," or "Yassam." And we just wasn't going to take it. We was determined that when they called for the union to be organized, we young men, we decided that we was going out. And when those gentlemen, old gentlemen, told us that y'all coming in to destroy our job, we said, "No, sir. Y'all going off of the scene, we coming on. And we got to make things better." And when the union was organized, Mr. T.O. Jones, Mr. Jesse Epps, and a few others that I just can't just really call by name right now, we walked out for 65 long days. We was out, no job, family at home, no food. And it almost seemed that all hope was gone until somebody called in Dr. Martin Luther King. And when he came in, he taught us young men to march nonviolence. Let's have a peaceable march. But I want to let you know something that many of you probably don't know. You heard about the riots, the water hoses, the mace, the dogs being let loose on us. There was some Caucasian gentlemen in this city at that time that was paying some of our little young black boys by us living in such low poverty and not having anything. They would offer them $5 or $10 just to corrupt the march. And they would come down and throw bricks in the business places on Main Street after we marched from Firestone past City Hall. Gets down to Main and Beale, and right there is where a riot broke out. I'm standing there trying to defend myself when this policeman let a dog loose on me. And I hit the dog in the nose. He snapped his holster and said, "Hit him again." Well, naturally, I wasn't going to hit him the second time because he could have shot me the first time. Being a young man and I got sprayed with mace and had water hoses sprayed on me and just about bitten by a dog, I vanished through the crowd. Went to my mother's house on Ponty Top. And when I walked in the door, my mother said, "Boy, you look like you just seen a ghost." I wanted to say to my mom, I like to became a ghost. But we was determined that we was going to get a union. And thank God for the elder men that stuck with us. And we went to a place, and I'm closing, we went to a place on Beale Street called A Squad. Some of us young men pooled our little money together because we seen what was about to take place down on Democrat and Airways. I can't say about no other installation. But we seen on Democrat and Airways that somebody was trying to sneak across the picket line. We went down there and bought us some axe handlers. And we was going to use those axe handlers on whoever came across that picket line. We got the union organized, and here we are today. And we are here because of those brave men. Many of them are gone on to be with the Lord. Many of them are in nursing homes. Many of them are in their homes that's defined to their homes and can't get out. But because of those men, you are sitting here tonight enjoying life. Because if we had a took tail and ran, you would still be going in the back door. You would still be getting picked up by Miss Ann and sitting in the back seat. You men would still be out there in the yard digging in the flower beds and walking the dog. But thanks be to God, God has so fit that we as a people has came together. And I just want to say to you, the struggle ain't over. We got to take the struggle further. But if we as a people were bond together and work together in this city, white, green, black, whatever color, if we were bond together in what you call agape, unconditional love, stop cussing and fussing, and work as a peoples together, come to the bargain table and come in unity, come in peace, we can get something did in this city. I'm going to leave it right here. I think I heard Mr. Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young, that brought Atlanta back up. If he can do it, we can do it. All we got to do is stick together. I'm closing on this here. I'm a young man, an old man now, but I didn't get an education. But I was determined that my children, a third generation of children, every last one of them, got an education. Some of them went to college. I got a set of children now, a 13, a 12, 11, and a 9. And they're in great schools. We don't live in the project. We live out in a nice community. And all of that came about because we stood up to be men and said, we are determined that we're not going to take it any longer. God bless you. God keep you.
Give Mr. Smith another big hand. We appreciate him. Oh my goodness, we do. It is now my extreme honor and pleasure to welcome the chairman of the Memphis City Council, Chairman Berlin Boyd.
Good evening. The measure of what you believe is what you do. If you want to find out what people believe, don't read what they write. Don't ask them what they believe. Just observe what they do. In 1968, the sanitation workers here in Memphis sacrificed a lot. And we are honored here today to recognize those men and women. When your co-workers, Ethel Cole and Robert Walker, were killed in a malfunctioning truck, you stood up and did what was right for each other and what was fair. We have Robert Walker's family here with us tonight. He's over here. We want to welcome you guys here tonight for the sacrifices that your family member did. 50 years ago, the courage and dignity and humanity to go on strike, you garnered the attention and the assistance of the civil rights leaders all over the country. Because of your efforts, our city, our nation are better. And the world has an example to follow in your struggles for civil rights. Tonight, the city of Memphis presents the I Am Award to the 1968 sanitation workers. These awards are being delivered by our current solid waste workers to the men and women on the shoulders that we all stand.
And now with closing remarks, Director of the Public Works Department, Robert Connect.
Thank you very much, and good evening. So, wow, what an incredible evening, right? Tremendous performances, tremendous speeches. We've outdone ourselves, and I'm really proud of what the city has done tonight. It's amazing. We've also been very fortunate tonight to hear some very powerful speakers. Thank you, Senator Booker, Mr. Bryant, and Andrew, and Ambassador Young. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We also heard a very powerful statement by another gentleman who I'm very fortunate to have still working for me. I'm the Public Works Director, and one of those gentlemen spoke a minute ago, Reverend Smith. Now, Reverend Smith has 52 years with the city of Memphis. I'll be 48. That means he's been working for the city 4 years longer than I've been alive. So that's impressive. I mean, that's tremendous. But I want to talk about a story that Mr. Smith once told me, and it resonated with me about some of the powerful statement about what we're talking about tonight. At a point in his career, Reverend Smith was given an opportunity to be a supervisor in solid waste. That was a promotion, and that was a good promotion. He came to work that day wearing a suit and tie. And we heard Mr. Bryant talk about what it was to wear a suit and tie, right? But he was faced with a very difficult decision at that point. He was asked to take some action against an employee that he knew wasn't just. And he refused. Said he wouldn't do it. So his manager at the time told him, well, if that's the way you feel, why don't you go out and get on a truck? And he went out and got on a truck in a suit and tie. Now, that's right. Now, if you know Mr. Smith, he wears a tie every day as part of his uniform in solid waste. It is part of his uniform, and it's symbolic of him and his character right there. That's character. That's a man. That's a representation of exactly what we're talking about here. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your continued service. I also want to talk about another young man who still works for me. This young man has 64 years of service with the city of Memphis. Raise your hand, Mr. Nickelberry. 64 years of service. He's been on the job since 1954, right? 1954, that's amazing. So Mr. Nickelberry's story is another interesting one I'd like to tell. So Mr. Nickelberry has been fortunate to get some recognition, as you can imagine. We were at an event with St. Jude, and those things tend to run long. Don't know why. And Mr. Nickelberry, he works. He's a diligent worker. He works a night shift on the downtown collection. And things are running along, and he's looking at me. He goes, I'm going to be late tonight. What am I going to do? I said, Mr. Nickelberry, trust me, I got you covered. Don't have to worry about being late tonight. Trust me, I got you covered. But that's character, right? This is a gentleman who didn't want to be late to work. He was ready to go, get on the truck, and do his job, and get it done right in service of his citizens. That's a man, right? So I do want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'm the fortunate one to have the closing remarks. I want to thank the men and women that I do have the fortune of working with alongside you as your director in the city and Division of Public Works. You provide tremendous service to our great city and our citizens. It's a thankless job, as the mayor said sometimes, and we don't get enough time and recognition for it from the citizens, so I want to thank you for all that you do. To those we're here tonight to recognize, I'm incredibly honored to be able to stand alongside you, those who have sacrificed so much toward the advancement of all. You fought for dignity and equality, and that is something that no one can ever take away from you. On behalf of the city of Memphis, I want to thank everyone who has participated in preparing tonight's event. You've done a tremendous job. It's amazing what this venues look like. Thank you very much. There's a lot of hours and time went into this, and they will hopefully get recognized for that in the future. Most of all, I want to thank the men and women here tonight that we're here talking about their families. Those who made what thought impossible possible. The power of your actions have earned its due right in history. We've talked about that a lot tonight, and how important this representative of our history of Memphis. As you not only changed Memphis, but you have helped change our country for the better. I hope you are as proud of that as we are proud of you. Thank you for all that you have done and all you continue to do. I hope everyone has a safe evening and a safe drive home. And have a good evening all. Thank you.
Wow, this has been an awesome night. Before you do anything, please give a big round of applause to our musical director, Mr. Kirk Clayton and Just Friends. Wow, what have we witnessed here tonight? Inspirational speeches from Senator Cory Booker, John Hope Bryant, Ambassador Andrew Young, beautiful messages and music from Regina Belle and Ann Nesby. We had glances at landmarks being made to commemorate the civil rights movement. And we heard testimony from the 1968 sanitation workers. This evening has touched all of our hearts. Thank you for attending the Martin Luther King 50th Honors Ceremony. And now we're in for a great treat and concert by the Ohio Players, so don't you go nowhere. My name is Bev Johnson from the legendary WDIA Radio, celebrating 70 years of good times and good wills. I'm Bev. I'll see y'all on the radio.
Wow, what an amazing experience.
Absolutely. I am so in awe of all the sacrifices these men made for our future.
I have always been a proud Memphian, but tonight I know that it is up to the next generation to take what we learned tonight and keep it going.
That's right. And as always, thank you again for joining us on the 901.
Thank you.
If I could, I'd protect you from the sadness in your eyes, give you courage in a world of compromise. Yes, I would, if I could. I would teach you all the things I never learned, and I'd help you cross the bridges that I burned. Yes, yes, I would, if I could. I would try to shield your innocence from time. So I can let you go. If I could, I'd help you make it through hungry years. But I know that I can never cry your tears. No, 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 no. But I would, yes, I would. I would do that for you and so